South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, who drew praise for his speech at last night's GOP convention.
We live in a world that only wants you to believe in the bad news, racially, economically, and culturally polarizing news. The truth is, our nation's arc always bends back towards fairness. We are not fully where we want to be, but I thank God Almighty, we are not where we used to be. We are always striving to be better.
And Senator Scott joins us now. Thanks so much for joining us, Senator. You got a lot of attention and traction on that one line in particular about how you went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime in your family. We appreciate you taking the time to come on the show with us.
Well, thank you very much, Lindsay. It's good to be back with you. And certainly, what a blessing to live in a country where you can literally go from picking cotton in one lifetime, and in the same lifetime, end up having your grandson in Congress. It says a lot about the American dream and the American creed. Quite an impressive trajectory for you. You laid out the case also for why President Trump should get a second term, and you've commended him on his efforts for Black Americans when it comes to criminal justice reform, funding for HBCUs, and a strong economy for minorities before the pandemic. But the president goes far beyond that and says that he's done more for African Americans than any president since Lincoln. At one point he said, bar none, that he's done more for African Americans than anyone else. Do you agree with that statement? Well, he certainly has done a lot as president, certainly more than a president has in the last 40 or 50 years. And so I do celebrate the accomplishments that he and I have been able to work together on. And beyond what you've named, we should add on to that sickle cell anemia research. We should add on top of that work for Black farmers, getting a farm number to participate in the farm programs in our nation, workforce participation, an increase in the home ownership percentage from when he started to where we are now. So there's a lot of accomplishments under the belt in this administration that really outpaces anything that I've seen in my lifetime. I'll probably leave it right there, though. But would you say, though, that now that the pandemic has exposed so many systemic issues of economic and racial inequality, that he needs to do a lot more? Well, I think we, as a nation, have a lot of work to do to help shore up our most vulnerable in our society, and that doesn't mean that the government needs to lead the charge. It does mean, however, that we have to stitch together the private sector response to the pandemic as it relates to job creation. We're going to have to look at the gig economy. We're going to have to look at connection issues like broadband in rural areas and inner city America. These are issues that we're going to have to tackle from a broadband front and from an entrepreneurial perspective. You think about Elon Musk and the launch of 59, I think it was, satellites. There's a lot of ways for us to bring the connectivity so you can telework, have telemedicine, and a future in the gig economy. We have to focus on that future that is now closer than ever because of the pandemic. So there's much work that needs to be done, and we should partner with people to make sure that we get the resources to the right aspects or the right areas of this country, and so we can have an equal distribution of opportunity flowing through this country. Now, the administration does deserve credit for criminal justice reform passed in 2018. Full stop. Now, yes, ma'am. As you know, that was a bipartisan effort that easily passed in the Senate 87 to 12. Now, the president touts himself as a deal maker. So what has he been able to do, or has he tried to help negotiate a deal on police reform this summer in the wake of these nationwide protests? And as we see now, as I talk to you, there are protests that are actively going on in Kenosha after the shooting multiple times in the back of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin. Yes, ma'am. I'll give you a few points that I think crystallizes the efforts of the White House. It's really embedded in the executive order that I use along with the House bill to really create the third leg of the stool. In his executive order, he passed the national database that the Democrats said would be critical for us to have the information so that bad officers are not able to hop from one agency to the other agency. I had the the preservation of the records. He created the national database that the left wanted. A good decision probably on both sides. And my legislation spoke to the local preservation. A second issue that we talked about that he did in the executive order was he spoke to the importance of co-responders to scenes, especially scenes that include mental instability or alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and or homelessness, because in some instances what you really need is a medical expert and not just an officer. That was a part of the executive order. We think we should fund that through grants and make sure that more agencies, 18,000 throughout this country, more agencies have the resources necessary to tackle that problem. And then we continued down the road in conversation with my legislation on how we dealt with the federal apparatus and instructing the AG to ban chokeholds and federal agencies. So I think those were a good start, frankly. I think that got us closer to the 50-yard line, and my legislation brought us to the 10. I think there's room for us to grow this conversation into a legislation that passes and becomes law.
Yeah, lots more conversation and action, hopefully, to come on that. Last night, you discussed opportunity zones and your signature initiative that passed in 2017 with President Trump's support to bring billions of dollars of private sector investments into distressed communities. But a report this summer by the Urban Institute found that much of the money is flowing to real estate developers instead of aiding businesses or job creation in black communities. And here's how the New York Times put it in a report last year. I just want to quote, billions of untaxed investment profits are beginning to pour into high-end apartment buildings and hotels, storage facilities that employ only a handful of workers, and student housing in bustling college towns, among other projects. Many of the projects that will enjoy special tax status were underway long before the Opportunity Zone provision was enacted. So what's your response to this criticism that these Opportunity Zones are benefiting the wealthy more than the black residents in these communities?
Well, thank you, Lindsay. I have been doing a lot of research on this topic, too, so I'm glad you asked. Unfair, unbalanced is the reporting that you're getting from New York Times. The fact of the matter is, you look at the issue of impact on the black community specifically, you start with the issue of gentrification. Fewer than 4% of the zones showed any signs of gentrification. You look at the issue of workforce development within the zones, you saw somewhere between 6 and 8% increase in the wages within the zones. You look at the issue of property values, and frankly, 60% of the residents own their property. Property values went up about 10 or 12%, which is good news from a valuation perspective. You also can cherry pick what you want to report in the New York Times, which is really unfortunate. So around the country, I can go to Georgetown, I can go to Rock Hill, I can go to Maine, Texas, and what you'll find is that affordable housing has been a key in this entire Opportunity Zone project approach. Real estate's one part of the apparatus. The other part is job creation and stabilization. When you see the full complement, I think you'd walk away with a different opinion. And it's one of the reasons why both Donald Trump and now I hear even Joe Biden wants to maintain the Opportunity Zones. So it's doing something that nothing else has done, and that's a good thing.
Senator Tim Scott, we appreciate your time, especially in this busy week. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Have a great day, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.